Who used to call me on my cell phone? Say like when you need me.
Memory is learning that persists over time. It's information that is gained, stored, and retrieved over time. An example would be like your childhood memories or language or songs. Psychologists measure memory in 3 ways: recall, recognition, and relearning. Recall is the retrieval of information that isn't in your conscious awareness, but it's learned in the past, and it would be like a fill-in-the-blank question. That would test your recall, Recognition is identifying items learned before. Multiple choice questions would test your recognition. Relearning, it's already explained in the name, but it's learning something more quickly the second or another time. Reviewing or retesting yourself would be an example of relearning. What is a memory model? Psychologists create memory models to help explain how our brains form and retrieve memories. Obviously, these models aren't going to be perfect, but in history there are a lot of memory models like videotapes or libraries or even wax tablets, if you think about that. A modern information processing model would be a computer and its operations. They compare us to that, and for humans to remember, we must encode, retain, and retrieve. Encoding is getting the information to the brain. Storing is retaining it or storing it, and retrieving is to get the information later at a different date, like for a test or just trivia or whatever. This analogy isn't perfect because computers are, their memories are like actual literal memory, and they're more compact and dense and stuff, and our memories are less literal and more fragile. And computers also, they process things in a sequence where we process things simultaneously. Like right now, I'm hearing all the birds and the leaves and the raindrops and then I'm smelling the dirt and whatever. My brain is handling all these things simultaneously, and it's called parallel processing, and it kind of helps us with our survival functions, like breathing and heart rate and stuff like that. Connectionism is an information processing model that helps us focus on the multi-track processing by viewing memories as products of interconnected neural networks. Certain memories can be specific, and they can only come or arise from specific patterns. So every time you learn something new, your brain's neural connection changes, forming and strengthening the pathways in your neural network, which helps you learn and interact constantly with the changing environment. But how are our memories formed? We use the 3-stage multi-store model by Richard Atkinson and Richard Schifrin to explain that. First, we record the information as a fleeting sensory memory. Then we process it into our short-term memory, which gets encoded through rehearsal. And lastly, the information gets moved into long-term memory and for later retrieval. So like, if you made a new friend and you saw their phone number and they call you, you'll eventually memorize that phone number. But that was the old memory model. Back then, short-term memory was only seen as, quick storage for recent thoughts and experiences, but there's actually more parts to it, Working memory is a part of short-term memory, where it combines short and long-term memory. It combines your current experiences with the long-term, so you can remember it. And as you integrate this information with, again, your long-term experiences, a central executive coordinates these focus processings through the phonological loop and visuospatial sketchpad. And without focused attention, you wouldn't really remember these, would you? It would fade away. And the phonological loop is, again, it's auditory. It holds auditory information briefly in your short-term / working term memory. An example would be repeating a phone number from someone you met until you can put it into your contacts. And the visuospatial sketchpad is a component of your memory that will help you remember information and objects in their relation of space, like where you parked your car or which way to go home. And as of this moment, actually, your working memory is linking what you're learning right now to stuff you already know. And our working memory helps us integrate our old previous experiences with the new ones to make smart decisions. As you think and learn, your flexible brain is changing, like even right now. There's increased activity in certain neural pathways, and new neural interconnections are forming and getting stronger. And neurogenesis is happening, which is obviously the forming of new neurons. New neurons can form through exercising, sleep, or non-stressful stimulating environments. Long-term potentiation, or LTP, is an increase in your nerve cells' fire potential after a quick, rapid stimulation. The sending neuron will need less prompting to release its neurotransmitter, and more connections exist between neurons. LTP provides a neural basis for learning and remembering associations, and LTP is practically the physical base for memory. So, what is memory and how is it measured? Memory is learning that persists over time through encoding, storage, and the retrieval of information. Proof of memory is seen in the ability to recall, recognize, and relearn information. Psychologists measure these three different forms of memory separately. How do memory models help us study memory, and how has later research updated the three-stage multi-store model? Psychologists use memory models to help us think about and explain how our brains form and retrieve memories. Information processing models like the multi-store model involve three processes: encoding, storage, and retrieval. Our algebra brains process many things simultaneously to means of parallel processing. The connectionism information processing model focuses on this multi-track processing, viewing memories as products of interconnected neural networks. The three processing stages of the Atkinson-Shiffrin model are sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. This model has since been updated to include important and newer concepts such as working memory, the active sketchpad, processing that occurs at this stage when our short-term memory combined with our long-term memory, and automatic processing, which occurs behind the scenes to allow information to slip by into memory without the need to consciously attend to it. The central executive coordinates the activity of the phonological loop, which briefly holds auditory information, and the visuospatial sketchpad, which briefly holds information about objects' appearance and location. Long-term potentiation, or LTP, is a neural basis for learning and memory. In LTP, neurons become more efficient at releasing and sensing the presence of neurotransmitters, and more connections develop between neurons.